And now, Chapter 30, Morgana's Wand. Bree felt like an infant crawling hand and knee up the stairs to the second floor of the wind tower. She sat at the top of the stairs and caught her breath. It was taking more and more energy to move now, and she didn't know how much longer she had until the poison from the bats ended her life. She guessed that the gifts given to her by the ether also helped her body fight off the poison better. Thankfully, none of the bats followed her to this second floor. She glanced down the stairs to see them still swarming below. Seeing the frantic flutters of their wings, her mind wandered and she felt like sleeping. She needed some medicine to heal her. Having a fairy with healing abilities would have been great right now. The second floor of the wind tower wasn't as big as the room below. While the roof was still high above her, it was only half the distance as before, and there were no platforms. There were many statues of men and women on pedestals surrounding the room. She estimated there were 13 from what she could see. In the center of the room was a tall statue on a bigger pedestal of some goddess with antennae and wings. She could not see her face from where she sat, but she could tell the goddess was holding something. Bree struggled to her feet and lumbered over to the central statue. As she did, she noticed the floor was covered in a pattern of shimmering Temple of Wind symbols every few feet. Instinctively, she avoided walking on them and made her way to the statue. It was surrounded by 4 empty pedestals, one of which was not in the same position as the other 3. All 4 had small keyholes on every side. She made her way to the front of the statue and rested against one of the pedestals that was in the proper place. The winged goddess statue looked like a fairy crossed with a butterfly. She had very strange eyes and antennae coming out of her head. One leg was slightly lifted as if she were about to take off. Her left hand was open and extended upward with her reach, while the other rested at her hip. The lower hand was in a strange position, as if it used to be holding something. She glanced back up at the goddess's face. Was this Morgana? Was she supposed to be holding a wand? She looked around the room until her eyes fell upon the pedestal to the right of the statue. It was further away from the statue than the other 3. The floor in front of it, where it should have been, was cleaner than the surrounding floor, as if it were pushed out of place. Bree came close to it and crouched down, examining the keyholes. Now that she was closer, they weren't keyholes at all. Bringing up the grip hook, she placed the metal hook in the opening. Perfect fit. She stood up and took a few steps back. She fired the grip hook into the pedestal and heard a clang similar to a bolt locking. She stumbled forward as the grip hook pulled her to retract. She fought against it and ended up stepping on one of the Temple of Wind floor symbols. Instantly, the floor began to rumble, even though she quickly stepped off. Every symbol on the floor glowed and then released a black lava-like substance from its form. The black goo formed into a gumdrop shape and bounced off the floor. She was now surrounded by black blobs of slime bouncing around the room. Most started to come for her. Still holding the grip hook, she fumbled for her sword hilt and brought it out. As she began to activate the flame sword, one of the slime blobs hit her and she dropped the weapon. Instinctively, she retracted the grip hook from the pedestal and fell over. Between the pressure to get the wand, the poison, and now these blobs, Bree was overwhelmed. She skittered on the floor until she hit her back against the central statue. The nearest blob jumped at her, and she aimed and then fired the only weapon she had. The grip hook split the blob apart into 6 pieces as the barbs of the hook spread open, and then each piece fell to the ground. Bree watched it with amazement as each black piece of slime was absorbed back into the floor, whether it landed on the wind symbol or not. Her sword was still too far for her to reach, so she used the grip hook for the rest of the fight. Thankfully, the barbed end returned quickly after each blob of slime, so she didn't have to worry about retraction time too much. When they were all destroyed, Bree shot the grip hook back into the pedestal and then pulled. It was heavier than expected, but she managed to move it back into position. Once in place, the statue behind her shook and then began to glow. It slowly crumbled away to the floor, revealing a wand hovering over the pedestal in an orange light. The tip of it looked like a pulsating star. She smiled, retracted the grip hook, and put it into her hip pack. As she approached the hovering wand, she reached over and picked up the mystic sword. She was instantly hit with a heavy wave of dizziness and fatigue. Battling the blobs of slime was too much, and now the poison in her system increased in strength. She fell forward and rested on the central pedestal, feeling her throat close up and her eyes shut. She struggled to retract the sword into the hilt and then back into her hip pouch. Nausea soon washed over her, and she doubled over in pain. Her head throbbed, and every muscle in her body ached. She stared at the hovering wand for what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only a couple seconds. and then she finally reached out for it. Grasping the handle, a warm sensation began washing all over her body. All body aches soon vanished and the nausea went away. Her breathing slowed to a normal pace and her vision cleared. She examined the wand and figured she had found Morgana's wand for Odiana. She didn't know how to use fairy magic, so she was unsure as to why the wand was healing her. It didn't seem right to question what was happening, so she just went with it. As she turned away from the central pedestal, an almost deafening screeching noise came from above. She looked up just in time to see an extremely large bird swoop down out of the air towards her. However, she wasn't fast enough to react when it grabbed her with its feet and dragged her high into the air. Who was that? See you next time.